Hello and welcome all back to Election Time News America. Today is Sunday, September 21st, 2025, and today we're going to be doing an update on the 2025 United States gubernatorial elections later this year on November 4th, which is just over 1 month away. Things are getting more tense, so we're going to be keeping an update on those two races that we are waiting eagerly for at the beginning of just 5 weeks away. Election Time News, your one stop for all things elections and politics, from summations to poll reviews and news. Subscribe below for more content like this about American, Canadian, and Australian elections. Also, make sure to follow the Substack threads, Instagram, and X to stay up to date on political news as it comes out. Remember, there's never a dull moment in politics. So, what we have here is the general page. We can see they're 27 to 23 currently. And so, based on that, we know that the Republicans are going to end up holding on to a majority here, 26 to 22, even if Democrats win both of them, then it'll be 26-24, even with only one flip. So Republicans will hold on to the majority of governorships here, and so that is generally good news for them as they obviously want to control the majority. The earliest the Democrats will be able to take a majority is in 2026. And so what we're looking at in 2021 was the fact that Glenn Youngkin pulled off what was seen as somewhat of an upset in Virginia, winning by 1.9% just a year after Joe Biden won the presidency, and that was after another Republican flip in Montana after popular incumbent Governor Steve Bullock was term limited. He had won re-election by 4 in 2016 against Greg Gianforte, and then Gianforte won his first term in 2020. He was recently re-elected in 2024 by 20%, which is actually 0.3% better or so than Trump did. But looking in 2021, obviously we can see Youngkin won, but then narrowly Chris Murphy won re-election in 2021, which was actually a bit of a surprise, not necessarily an upset, but a surprise in general, as that wasn't very common to happen, and actually he was the first Democratic governor to win re-election since 1977. So that's the large that's the large surprise there, is going to be the fact that he was able to pull off that win there. You can see here he was the first Democratic governor reelected in 1977, but it wasn't by much, only by 3.2%. And so, he lost Morris County by 11, which Joe Biden had won just 12 months prior. And so also in Virginia, you can see here that they end up having a no, it's not going to let me. Okay. Then you end up having a GOP win. They also have Earl Sears actually doing a little bit better of the percent in general, but that's because there was less undecideds in general. Here, all the votes went to these two candidates. Here, there's a few undecideds, but that's not what we're focusing on right now. The main thing is New Jersey. In Virginia, things are actually getting more solidified. 8.1% is going to be the number there for Abigail Spanberger. We have right now is that she's ahead by 7.1 in the RCP polling average. A new recent poll done by Christopher Newport University has her up by 12. And so the last time I did this, she was only up by 5. So as undecideds are dropping here, that's going to be only 8% undecided, and in this original poll, that's going to be 6 on that side and 11. That's 17%. So as they've dropped, more of them have actually gone to Spanberger. Roanoke College did actually drop a lot, but that's actually a strong. That's actually an increase for both of them, so that's actually not necessarily a bad thing for Spanberger. That just looks bad on the top line. But she's doing relatively well, and so we have here is going to be an 8.1 point margin for that projection, which is going to be quite a bit of a shift from 2021, but we do end up having a map that's a bit like this. It is a bit red shifted from where it was before, but we have some stronger gains here. Lynchburg a bit bluer than expected there, so this is very touchy, obviously, as some regions might have a bit. She'll probably actually have a bit better support in this region because this is where she held her House district, back a while ago, so that's going to be most likely a bit more favorable towards her, if anything. But she's still expected to win by a relatively strong margin, but New Jersey is not so secure anymore. So what we looked at, obviously, is Chris Murphy won by 3.2%, the first Democrat to win re-election since 1977, and now the Democrats are hoping to go for a third term. Now, this would be continuing the trend that for every single election since 1988, New Jersey has gone to the opposite party of the one that who is in the White House. So if we keep on going, Obama, and then you have Bush, Clinton, Bush. Now, back in the Reagan era was the last time that they had the exact same party. Here it was Keene winning by 40.3% while Reagan was in office. But at that time, there were a lot of, and that's future President Bill Clinton as governor of Arkansas, there were a lot of Democrats in governorships. I mean, all three of these were blue at that point in time. And in 1982, Democrats swept a lot of governorship races. So I believe that's Chris Sununu's father. But so obviously things changed a lot. But the general point is that it generally goes the opposite party, except for 2021, where it went blue after the White House went to Democrats, but only by 3.2%, and that was after a very strong performance in 2017. That's still quite a considerable drop from how things were just a few years prior at that point. So that was a 10.9 point loss, and Youngkin did 11 points better as well. So both of them actually shifted by 10.9 points from 2017 to 2021, which is just a bit interesting to see. But Youngkin being able to pull off that win. Now Murphy a bit less. So obviously he's term limited. So we're going to be getting into the actual New Jersey specifics. And looking at here is a slow drawing away from momentum of the Sherrill campaign. She's done relatively well so far. There's not many polls shown on the RCP average, but 8.8, she was doing it plus 21. That was a relatively large one, but Quinnipiac is the only other one that actually had her above 50%. There's quite a few undecideds at this point still. So that's going to be something to look at. But the main thing is some interesting things. It was a Ciatterelli internal poll, but it's the first one to show him leading her by 1. So this is pretty interesting. 46-45 in a two-way race. 21-point lead amongst voters not registered with either party, which is actually a large bonus among a gain amongst independents. If that is in fact how it ends up going, that would be a large shift from 2021, obviously, as Murphy did win independents by a good bit. Generally, independents in New Jersey go Democratic. But we do still have the undecideds issue here. If we look at some of these undecideds, typically undecideds break for the party that wins in the presidential elections. And so right now we have 49-39, for example. That's 11 on this side and 1 on this side. That's 12 total. So Sherrill would likely win by more than 10 because those undecideds would break for Sherrill. Because even in as bad of a presidential year as 2024, Kamala Harris still ended up winning New Jersey by 6 percentage points, which is a relatively considerable, which is again a relatively small margin for New Jersey, even smaller than in 2004, which was a 6.7 point margin for Kerry. And so even then, a lot of other candidates, Obama 15.5 and 17, Clinton by 14, Biden by 16, Harris by 6. So it definitely, both of them went by just around 6 percentage points. They're roughly even so far, and even in PVI. What we're looking at in New Jersey is something interesting. Either it's going to be a Democratic blowout. The most common outcome is going to be a Democratic win by about 5 to 6 for Sherrill. But then you have a very close Democratic win or a very close Republican win being the next few, and then also a very, very strong overperformance. Some of what we saw essentially in 2017 is also relatively common. in some of these simulations. So you end up having 12 and 10. These are out of 100. But you have a few trailing off here. We have 74.23% chance of a win for Sherrill still, but it is starting to collapse a bit, and the result guess is now down to 5.7, which is quite a bit less than it was. It was closer to 8 or 9 a while ago. Last video, which was about a week and a half ago or so. So that's still quite a bit of a loss now that we have quite a few more polls that are showing it to be quite a bit closer in his favor. We can see Sherrill by 8, but Quinnipiac had it by a bit, but National Research, this was also sponsored by Ciatterelli's campaign, but still only up by 2, 8% undecided. Even there, that is still relatively good for the Sherrill campaign, but still would be better to see it a bit higher up. Obviously, for any campaign, you'd want to see it a bit higher up, but there's a chance that there actually could end up being about a 17% chance that Ciatterelli will end up winning by just a narrow amount, just under 2 percentage points, which would be somewhere around how well Youngkin did in 2021. We'll have to see how that momentum continues, if it even continues at all, or we might end up seeing a solidification from somewhere from 4 to 6 points, or maybe even a strengthening of the higher end there. So that's going to be the number one concern for the Sherrill campaign, is there is enough momentum right now that it could carry him to be favored by election night if things continue, and that would be basically disastrous for the Democrats, as losing New Jersey after losing the White House. Generally, it goes the other way around, but that not being the case in 2025 would be a big red flag for the Democrats with their choice in how they run campaigns, their messaging, and et cetera, et cetera. So that would be a potential difficulty for the Democrats going into 2026, where they have quite a few races up that are going to be somewhat competitive, especially looking at Georgia, potentially Florida. Governorships are a lot more volatile than senatorships or the presidential level, so Florida could potentially be competitive. Iowa, so quite a few races that could end up being a bit competitive, that if they end up doing poorly in 2025, could definitely end up showing that they're going to potentially have a very weak performance come 2026. So all of that together is painting somewhat of a warning sign for Democrats. Nothing to sound the alarm yet, especially with how things are going with Trump's term. His disapproval rating, he just hit minus 17 with a recent poll done by The Economist. And that includes a 25.6 points, even down minus 16.5 with 2024 voters, which cross-checking with, the fact that Kamala Harris only won by 6 means that quite a few Trump voters in New Jersey are regretting their vote based on the approval rating. So that does mean a lot, considering how close Ciatterelli is putting his campaign close to Donald Trump, and that may end up coming back to bite him in a state like New Jersey, or it could be surprising and be just what gets him over the finish line. Thank you all so much for watching today's video. Make sure to subscribe if you're not already. Make sure to give suggestions in the comments of what future videos you want to see. And thank you all so much again, and have a fantastic rest of your day.